So I want you to just picture this scene for a second.
Okay.
It's basically the ancient Near East version of a Billboard Top 40 release party. You've got this huge street parade, women dancing, percussion instruments going.
Yeah.
It is the party of the decade.
Right. Pure celebration.
But then the camera, it pans up, up to the palace balcony, and you see a king who is not celebrating.
Well,
he is absolutely fuming.
Michael's white on the railing.
Exactly. And why? Because the lyrics of the #1 hit song just insulted his kill count.
It's the ultimate ego injury. I mean, it sounds so petty, but it's incredibly dangerous. And then if you cut to 1,000 years later, you get a totally different scene.
A completely different scene.
You've got a healer by the seaside, but it's not some, peaceful meditation retreat. It's a riot.
Right.
The crowds are swarming him so hard, he literally has to get a boat ready just to keep from being crushed.
Crushed to death by his own fans, basically.
Ah.
And these two scenes, they have such different vibes, but they are the bookends for our deep dive today. We're looking at the source stack for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, and really digging into the liturgical readings set for the next day, January 22nd. And that date is significant.
It is. Looking at the calendar, it's marked as the day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children.
Which puts a very specific, and I'd say very heavy, lens on how we're supposed to read these texts.
It completely reframes the conversation, yeah. We're not just reading stories about ancient kings and crowds. We're being asked to look at the definition of innocent blood, the danger of envy, and what the powerful owe to the vulnerable.
It's a really fascinating lineup of sources. We've got the first book of Samuel, which, honestly, it reads like a political thriller.
It really does.
Then there's Psalm 56, which feels more like a diary entry written from a bunker while the sirens are going off.
Yeah, very raw.
And finally, the Gospel of Mark, with that chaotic, almost overwhelming scene by the water. So the mission today is to figure out how a jealous king connects to a modern day of prayer and what a flask of tears has to do with any of it.
It's not immediately obvious, is it? But the thread is definitely there. It's about the value of a single life, especially when that life becomes inconvenient for someone in power.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the drama in 1 Samuel chapters 18 and 19. The whole saga of King Saul, his son Jonathan, and the rising star David. And it all pivots on that parade I mentioned.
David's just come back from killing Goliath. He's the hero of the hour. The adrenaline is high.
It is, and the text gives us this very specific detail about the celebration. It mentions the women coming out with tambourines and sistrums.
Right.
Hold on, sistrums. I feel like I should know what that is, but I'm drawing a blank.
Think of like a metal rattle, almost like a prehistoric maraca or a tambourine, but with metal discs instead of jingles.
Okay.
It was used in these big victory processions. It cuts through the noise. So you have this wall of sound, pure joy, and they are chanting this one refrain.
Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000.
That's it. That's the trigger.
It seems so incredibly petty. I mean, Saul is the king. He's the CEO. Why does he care if the new guy had a record-breaking quarter? It helps the whole company, right?
You would think so. But you have to get inside the logic of political survival in a monarchy, especially for someone as insecure as Saul.
So what's his thought process?
He does the math instantly. He hears that song and says, they give David 10,000s, but only thousands to me. And then he just spirals. He jumps right to the absolute worst conclusion.
All that remains for him is the kingship.
Exactly. He sees it as a total zero-sum game.
That is the psychology of envy, isn't it?
It is. In Saul's mind, power is this finite pie. If David's slice gets bigger, his must be getting smaller. It's not just, I want what you have, it's, your success is an active threat to my existence.
And the text says, from that day on, Saul eyed David. That is such a creepy phrase.
It implies this constant paranoia. He's just watching, waiting for a slip-up, and it escalates fast. We aren't talking about passive aggression here.
No.
Saul openly discusses assassinating David. He brings it up with his servants and his own son, Jonathan, saying, the plan is to kill David.
Which puts Jonathan in an impossible position. I mean, we kind of gloss over this, but Jonathan is the crown prince. Technically, David is his rival, not just his father's.
That's a crucial point. If anyone had a strategic motive to let Saul kill David, it was Jonathan.
Getting rid of David clears his own path to the throne.
It makes everything simple. But Jonathan doesn't play the power game. He plays the morality game.
So he steps in, and I want to get into how he does it, because he doesn't just, throw a tantrum. He approaches his father with what sounds like a legal argument.
It's a masterclass in advocacy, really. First, he buys time, tells David to go hide. Then he goes to the king, his father, and appeals to facts. He says, "Let not the king sin against his servant David."
He uses the word sin. That's intentional.
Very. He's framing this not as a political purge, which kings did all the time, but as a moral transgression against God.
He also reminds Saul of David's utility, right? He says, his deeds have been of good service to you.
He does. He brings up the victory over the Philistines. He reminds his father, "You saw it and you were glad." He's forcing Saul to remember his own positive reaction, trying to bypass the current jealousy.
Trying to get him to look at reality, not just fear.
But then he delivers the knockout punch. He asks, "Why then should you become guilty of shedding innocent blood by killing David without cause?"
Innocent blood. That phrase, it feels like it carries a ton of legal weight in the Old Testament. It's not just descriptive.
It's nuclear. In Hebrew theology, shedding innocent blood is one of those sins that cries out to heaven for vengeance. It pollutes the land itself.
So Jonathan is basically warning him.
He's warning him, if you do this, you aren't just securing your throne, you are cursing your entire reign. He is drawing a moral line in the sand.
He's shifting the whole framework from, is this convenient for me, to, is this right?
Exactly. And for a moment, it actually works. The text says Saul listened. He swears this huge oath. "As the Lord lives, he shall not be killed."
It's a victory for conscience.
Yeah.
But we know it's a fleeting one. The focus here, though, seems to be on that intervention, that moment someone stood up.
It really establishes the archetype for this day of prayer that the source material highlights. The role of the believer, according to this, is to be Jonathan.
To stand between the powerful like Saul and the innocent like David and just say,
there is no cause for this death. This life has value.
Even if that life is seen as a threat to the status quo.
Especially then. I mean, David was a huge threat to Saul's power. The liturgy draws this parallel that threat or inconvenience doesn't justify shedding innocent blood. The advocate's job is to point to the innocence.
That's a heavy parallel. Let's pivot to the internal side of this. While all this is going on in the court, what is David doing? We get a glimpse into his head with Psalm 56.
And it is not the mindset of a swaggering hero. The psalm is subtitled, "When the Philistines Seized Him in Gath." So this is David on the run. He's totally vulnerable behind enemy lines.
The tone is frantic. He says, all the day they press their attack against me. It sounds so claustrophobic.
It is. He says he feels trampled. That's the word he uses. It implies he's being treated like dirt, like something you just walk over. But then right in the middle of this panic, he gives us one of the most striking images in the whole Bible.
You're talking about the flask.
Yes. David says to God, "My wanderings you have counted. My tears are stored in your flask. Are they not recorded in your book?"
It's such a weirdly specific image. Tears in a flask? Is that just a metaphor, or were people actually bottling tears?
Well, there is some archaeological evidence of what they call tear bottles in ancient tombs. Little vessels where mourners would collect their tears to bury with a loved one. Yeah, it symbolized that the grief was real, that it had value, that it shouldn't just evaporate. But David here, he turns it into a theological statement. He's saying that God isn't just watching from a distance. God is actively collecting the evidence of his suffering.
That completely flips the script on being trampled. I mean, if the king is trampling me, I feel worthless. But if the creator of the universe is saving my tears like they're a fine wine...
then you must matter. That's the pivot. Realizing his pain has substance, it has weight to God, it changes his fear. He goes from "men trample me" to "in God I trust, I shall not fear. What can flesh do against me?"
What can flesh do against me? I mean, looking at Saul, flesh can do a lot. It can throw a spear. It can drive you into exile.
Physically, yes. David knows that. He's a soldier, but he's operating on a metaphysical level now. He realizes his essential value is held by God. Saul can take his job, maybe his life, but he can't take his worth. That belongs to the one who's holding the flask.
Which connects so well back to the theme of the day. The value of a life, whether it's a future king or an unborn child, isn't determined by whether society finds them convenient. It's intrinsic.
It's the difference between assigned value, what Saul thinks David is worth, which is 0, and inherent value, what God thinks he's worth. And that value is absolute.
Okay, let's keep that idea of crowds and trampling and value in mind and jump to the gospel. Mark chapter 3. We're fast-forwarding 1,000 years.
Right. Jesus withdraws to the sea with his disciples. And withdraws is the key word. He's trying to get a break.
But it doesn't work.
Not at all. And Mark gives us this little geography lesson that's actually really important. He lists where the people are coming from: Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, beyond the Jordan, and from around Tyre and Sidon.
Okay, I know Jerusalem and Galilee. What about the others? Idumea. Tyre.
This is huge. Idumea is the region of the Edomites' traditional enemies of Israel. Tyre and Sidon are Gentile territories. This means the crowd isn't just local Jewish people, it's a multinational, multi-ethnic surge.
So people are crossing borders just to get near him. And the physical intensity sounds terrifying. The text says he told them to get a boat ready so that they would not crush him.
The Greek word there implies being literally squeezed. It's a mosh pit, a chaotic rock concert. And notice why they're pressing in. Those who had diseases were pressing upon him to touch him.
They're not there for a sermon.
No, they're not there for a parable. They're there for survival. It's almost predatory. They want to consume a piece of him to get healed. And then in the middle of this chaos, you get this really bizarre interaction
With the unclean spirits.
This is the great irony in Mark's gospel. It's always the irony. The humans are confused, desperate, just looking for a physical cure. But the demons, they have absolute crystalline theological clarity.
The text says whenever they saw him, they'd fall down and shout, "You are the Son of God!"
They know exactly who he is. They have the data. They recognize him instantly. But look at Jesus' reaction. He doesn't say, "Oh, thanks for the endorsement."
No, he warned them sternly not to make him know.
He shuts them down. Hard.
But why? I mean, if you're trying to launch a movement, a supernatural testimony seems like pretty good marketing. Why silence them?
Because accuracy isn't the same as allegiance. And knowing the facts isn't the same as having faith. The reflections in our source material point this out. Jesus isn't looking for fans.
He's not looking for people who are just, dazzled by the light show.
Exactly. The source mentions the difference between fascination and humble obedience. The demons have the knowledge, but they lack love. They lack submission. The crowd has a need, a fascination, but they lack understanding. Jesus is trying to build something deeper. He's building disciples.
So knowledge isn't enough. You can get 100% on the theology exam and still be on the wrong team.
Precisely. As the Epistle of James says, even the demons believe and shudder. You can have all the correct facts about Jesus and still be his enemy. The question to do something in our source asks that exact question.
How can I move beyond simply admiring Jesus and begin following him?
That's a tough question. It's easy to admire the guy who's healing everyone. It's a lot harder to follow the guy who says, pick up your cross.
Or the guy who says to love your enemy.
Yeah.
Or, bring it back to 1 Samuel, the guy who demands you protect innocent blood even when it costs you. Discipleship is inconvenient.
Being a fan is easy.
Okay, let's try to synthesize all this. We have the day of prayer for the unborn. We have Jonathan defending David. We have David trusting God with his tears. And we have this crushing crowd. What's the unified theory here?
The unified theory is the person. In every one of these stories, there's a tension between power or the collective and the person.
Okay, break that down.
Saul has the power of the state. David is just a person. The crowd has the power of numbers. Jesus is the person being crushed. The modern state has power. The unborn child is just a person.
And the moral imperative in all these texts is to side with the person.
Yes. To recognize that the person has a dignity that power cannot strip away. Jonathan recognizes David's innocence against the king's rage. God recognizes David's tears against the world's indifference. Jesus recognizes the individual needs of the sick against the chaos of the mob.
It really challenges you, the listener, to ask, who am I in this story? Am I Saul, seeing other people as threats to my slice of the pie?
Or am I part of the crowd, just using God to get what I want, just pressing in for a favor? Or am I Jonathan, willing to speak up for the innocent when the king is screaming?
Or maybe, am I David? Maybe the listener today feels trampled. Maybe they feel like the world is just pressing in on them.
And the message for them is, your tears are in the flask.
They're recorded. You're not lost in the shuffle. Your suffering has an audience of one, and he's the only one that matters.
It's a heavy set of readings, but it's hopeful, too. It starts with a murder plot and ends with healing.
But a healing that demands something from us. It demands we stop just staring at the spectacle and actually step into the relationship. That we stop being the eyeing Saul and start being the God, seeing the value in the vulnerable. I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on today. We talked about those unclean spirits. They had the theology 100% correct. You are the Son of God. A+ on the doctrinal exam.
They knew more than the disciples did at that point, yet they were silenced and cast out. They were rejected.
Meanwhile, the crowd, who probably couldn't even spell theology, who were foreigners, who were unclean, who were just desperate, they were the ones who got healed.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is it possible that being right about God is actually less important than how you approach him?
That is a dangerous and beautiful thought. The demons had the facts. The crowd had the need. God seems to respond to the need, not the data.
Something to think about next time you're worried about having all the right answers. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.